What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones, from our very good friends over at Played Again Sports. We already talked about them earlier in the show. Don't forget, if you mention BYP with Q, you get 10% taken off your next order, 10% added on to your next order. And how about this? Our good friend, Corey Parson at the Fantasy Exec. He's making noise all over the betting community with the YouTube channel and the show. And I'm surprised he decides he only shows his face because he realizes his choke job of a squad, the Dallas Cowboys, are giving my poor New York Football Giants 16
and a half. It's a lot.
425 Fox window, and it's Tommy, go get your shoebox, DeVito.
Now, where did everybody refers to Tommy DeVito and they say, go get your shine box? But what, I don't know, was that from a movie or was that from The Sopranos?
Of course it was, man. Goodfellas.
It was from Goodfellas, but his name was Tommy DeVito.
Box. I ain't like that anymore. Watch yourself. Little bit.
Go get your shine box.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we got some Tommy DeVito action, but I think, right? So let's give a quick handicap.
Yeah.
You know how Dallas is. You know, Dallas is opportunistic. And that's what people going into the Philadelphia game. I said, if Philadelphia doesn't turn the football over, they should win the game. If Philadelphia turns the football over, that's how Dallas wants to play. They want you to turn the ball over. They want to get you on a short field, and they want to make things as easy as possible for Dak.
Yeah.
Things wasn't easy for Dak this past Sunday. And listen, I'm the biggest Dak Prescott critic. He played well on Sunday. He was not the reason why the Cowboys lost. The Cowboys lost because they couldn't get off the field on 3rd and 4th down. But here's the thing. That's what makes the Eagles so good.
Yeah.
Because nobody who plays them can get off the field on 3rd or 4th down because they're never at 1st and 10. They're always at 1st and 8.
Of course,
because they got a play that can get them an automatic 2 yards.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up. I mean, listen, you get that 4 or 5 yards on 1st and 2nd, 2nd and short, 3rd and quote manageable. But when you start to get to 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12, 3rd and long, then they pin their ears back. Now their secondary is a little suspect. We know that. But, you know, I got to counter with you for a minute. So you're talking about Dak playing well. That's all well and good. But come on, man. You know, recency bias. You know, you leave the movie theater, you look at the last scene.
Played well in that game, exactly. And he's not turning the ball over as much this year.
The last series, you cannot do one thing in that drive, and that's take a friggin' sack. Come on. What'd you have? 1st and 5 on the 6? With 27
yeah, and then you had a couple bad calls. I'm not never a blame the referee type, you know what I'm saying?
No, listen, horrible. The referees, I mean, you go back to the Miami game versus Eagles. Miami got tagged, I think, 12 penalties.
That was bad performance. Yep, that was a bad referee performance as well. And then, listen, this has really been the Eagles and Cowboys this past Sunday, for what it's worth, was the second biggest sporting event of the year. Besides the Super Bowl. That game did 27 million. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You can add up all the NBA Finals games, and they wouldn't add up to 27 million. You know what I mean? So
listen,
I was
just going to ask you this real quick. Just going back to the game for a second. I still think that there are teams that are trying to step up in weight, right? In weight class. And even though the Eagles sometimes will play a sloppy game, they're good enough where they can overcome that. And then the defense in the trenches, they make the plays when they have to. I still think, this is me now, and we'll get into it a little more, but I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. You start to look at the schedule, and all of a sudden, quietly, the Detroit Lions have a couple soft games coming up, and they're kind of sneaking out the back door. Now, I'm not going to say the Eagles are going to trip up, but don't be shocked here if you're looking at the Eagles and the Lions 1 and 2 now. No disrespect to San Fran, no disrespect to your Cowboys, but I just think scheduling-wise with the quirks, it opens up for the Lions, who, again, I mean, I think
the Lions are the 2nd seed in the NFC right now. It's a good chance they'll finish the year as the 2nd seed in the NFC, which makes it very fascinating because, so what do you want to do? If San Francisco, let's say San Francisco ends up the 3 seed, listen, Detroit can be the 1 seed because Philadelphia's schedule is about to get tough, and Detroit don't play nobody until they go to New Orleans. And I said New Orleans. That's like the toughest game on their schedule coming up. Detroit can end up with the 1 seed because they can rack up a very big record. Now, Minnesota racked up a very big record last year, and they lost to the Giants. So, and you know what the Giants look like in real life. Sorry. But listen, it's going to be fascinating to see Because like if the playoffs started today, Dallas doesn't have the tiebreaker over Seattle. So Dallas would have to go to San Francisco. And it's like, there you go. Season's over. You know what I'm saying?
But see, those teams, Dallas, San Francisco, and Philly, can go to Detroit and beat Detroit. I don't know if Detroit can go on the road in Philly.
Detroit will get like Minnesota or or somebody or the Commanders in their building, and that's an easy matchup for them. But when you listen, the NFC has 3 teams. The question is, who's the 4th team? Is the 4th team Detroit or Seattle?
But see, I think Detroit's better than Dallas.
I said, well, you're a Giant fan.
Hold on a second, but you're a freaking Cowboys fan.
Dallas is better than Detroit.
You're coming with me with that nonsense. I don't have a dog in this fight. My season ended in Halloween. Who are you talking about? I'm just being objective.
You can't think that the Lions are better than the Lions are not. But Dallas beat Detroit by like 20 last season, albeit nothing.
That means nothing to me. That means I do not trust your quarterback. I do not trust the head coach, period. And I think they're more balanced. Now, you can move the ball on Detroit. You can, but I've seen enough of Dallas. I feel like this conversation is every friggin' year. If not if not now, when with the Dallas Cowboys? It's like, talk to me in February, late January, if they're there.
But Rich, how come nobody says this about the 49ers? Because when San Francisco beat Dallas 42-10, they designated the parade route in San Francisco. Then they went on to lose 3 straight games, and nobody says a word. If the Cowboys lose a game by 1 point at the buzzer, it's national news.
Because they're crammed down our throat every friggin' Monday. And
does Jerry Jones cram it down your throat, or do Stephen A. Smith and the ESPN executives cram it down your throat?
You're getting me. Listen, I'm feeling it right now. It might be an early hot toddy. Listen to me. I'm telling you right now. There's a difference, right? Because America's team and the star, and that moves the needle. San Francisco's flawed, man.
Very much so.
Yeah. Purdy has not played well. The offense is struggling a little bit. They're dealing with some injuries, but I think they will right the ship. I've seen their track record. This kid gets hurt in Philadelphia. Who knows if they win the game, right? I mean, come on. I've seen Dallas's track record too, to let me know, big spot, big stage. They got to go 70-something, 80 yards, a couple timeouts late in the game, down 6. I don't trust the head coach. I don't trust the quarterback until you prove me wrong. And I just don't see it with this team this year. Detroit, 49ers, the Eagles. And we can sit there and say, pound for pound, the Eagles have been there before. So yeah, I don't have a problem saying right now they're the top team in the NFC.
Well, they've proved it, and their style of play and what they've been able to do shows it. So I have no choice but to say that. You know what I'm saying about the Philadelphia Eagles. San Francisco's had the advantage and upper hand over Dallas, but Dallas is better than Detroit. Now, Detroit has improved defensively this season, but you get Jared Goff into a situation against the Dallas Cowboys. If Jared Goff turns the ball over one time, the floodgates open. And he'll give it to you. Goff will give it to you. Yeah, listen, here's the deal. Dallas won. They didn't win. Dak Prescott has played well. I will say that as his number 1 critic. But I say he's played well, and then people say, "Oh, you changed on Dak Prescott." I say, do it in January.
Okay, and that's fair. Now, be that as it may, with Jared Goff, I think it's funny because he was one of the quarterbacks that I had prior to the season that was really going to be under the microscope, and now I took a flyer on him at plus 4,500 for MVP.
Yeah, well, that's not going to hit.
But think about this for a minute. Cast away Jalen Hurts, because if A.J. Brown were to get it, Jalen Hurts throws for 5,000 yards.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
Hill's going to get it, Tua's throwing for 6,000 yards. So let's cancel those guys.
Randy Moss didn't get it when he broke the touchdown record.
Wide
so a
receivers
receiver is not going to win it. Exactly.
Okay, so cancel those. Now you got quarterbacks. You mean to tell me if the Detroit Lions if they go 14-3, you're looking at head coach of the year, and you're looking at Jared Goff as a potential MVP. Now
it's going to be Lamar Jackson.
Baltimore's
the best team in football.
I would say
we are headed towards a Kansas City Buffalo AFC Championship showdown for the ages. Mahomes versus Jackson for all the marbles.
Wait, but Baltimore. You said Buffalo. Baltimore.
I said Buffalo. Buffalo's not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. So take a step back with me for a second. Trevor Lawrence, let's not forget about him in Jacksonville. Whether you think the schedule of the team, it's soft, we don't want to give him the flowers, that's fine. But if the Eagles wrap it up early, maybe Hurts is sitting a game or two. I think Detroit, if they get to that 13-14, it will be because of the quarterback, and he's putting up really good numbers. I was never the biggest Jared Goff fan, but for plus 4,000, plus 4,500 to me.
Oh yeah, that's a good number.
Because now they can stockpile a couple wins as long as he's, 250, 260, 280, maybe over 300 yards here and there, not turning the ball over, as you alluded to. The offensive line is doing much better. So I like that play.
I wish you can vote on assistant coach of the year, because I think Aaron Glenn would be a runaway winner of that award. What he has done with the Lions defense was their Achilles heel last season.
100%.
And now the Lions defense has become excellent. They're good against the pass. They drafted, the Lions have been drafted very well. Jameson Williams hasn't hit that as of yet, but Brian Branch, that linebacker Campbell, that defense, those two players and Aiden Hutchinson, obviously, let me not forget him.
Player.
Yeah, have made the Detroit Lions defense, been able to match what their offense has done. So, shout out to them. They're getting it done, but they're not better than Dallas. At least I don't think so. I would love to see those two teams play.
Listen, we'll see how it plays out. Last year they were scoring 35, but you're right. Defensively, they were giving up, 36, 37, 38 at times. Back to your point with Baltimore, we always talk about the recency bias, and Lamar Jackson owns the NFC. His lone loss was last year on the road against the Giants when he had that inexplicable turnover throw across his body late in that game.
Wow, I would have never thought the Giants was the NFC team to beat Lamar.
That's two, by the way. That's two. That's two. You're only going to get
Wait a minute. One of the Giants' 6 wins in the past 10 years was over Lamar Jackson.
I mean, I'm telling you, I'm going to remember this coming. You better hope that by some flash of football karma that this kid DeVito doesn't go 25 for 260. But Baltimore, you look at their offense now. Beckham gets in the end zone. They can run the football. We know about the defense and the track record. I thought coming out of the AFC North, we were going to get 3 teams, right? Cincinnati, Baltimore, division. Pittsburgh. But now you got Cleveland backing through, sneaking through the back door, even though Deshaun Watson stinks.
Rich, I've been with you. I've been just as critical as Watson as I have been of Dak. Deshaun has played better last week. Are you willing to say that the shoulder injury was the problem to start the season?
I can't say that. I don't know, because I'd have to go back and watch, practices, how he looked prior to, how he looked after, how his throwing motion, what he's doing, if he's taken off on third down, if he's willing to draw contact to make a hit. I've seen enough of Deshaun Watson, and their defense will carry them. Now you're just asking the quarterback to just simplify the game. I hate this phrase, manage the game and not turn the ball over. I just think that was a horrible signing. Every penny goes in his pocket. So what's the incentive? What's the motivation?
Rich, they got to cut him a $63 million check next year, a $63 million check in 2025, and a $63 million check in 2026. No one in the history of the game will ever get a guaranteed contract again.
No, it's buyer's remorse.
Yeah, 100%.
Look what Arizona's doing with our Murray.
Why did he held them hostage? They didn't have to pay him.
Yeah,
and now they're not going to be able to get rid of him. What if he gets hurt this week?
Well, the thing I was going to say, it's almost like they have to play him to show that he's not damaged goods.
Yeah, exactly.
Just in case. And
you're like, God, please, you can't get him hurt, because I would flip him to Atlanta in a heartbeat.
Oh, that quarterback's just. That quarterback.
That head coach is terrible too.
Yeah. Listen, agree. You got a lot of bad head coaches in the NFL. A lot. Let's take a look at some of these games. You got the snooze fest Thursday night, and I know right away the way you think is probably hammer the under on this one, because it just looks like a crap fest.
70%. What is it? The 37.5?
Yeah.
Yeah. You still got to go under 37.5. Listen, 70%. Prime time unders this year. I mean, it's really, I'm starting to bet it blindly.
That's a crazy stat. I read that stat the other day in the Post that, people are cashing, but I always feel too, when there's two bad teams like this, for some reason, it's going to be like a 35-31 game, right? It's just like, you look at it like that, but I don't like these offenses. There's another team, the Bears. Like, what are they going to do at the quarterback position?
They got to draft. They got to draft. They can't, it's going to, well, you know what it is? These teams don't like to admit when they were wrong. And I think the Bears, with these 2 first round, they should have drafted a quarterback last year. If you ask me, should have kept the quarterback, should have kept the pick and drafted a quarterback last year. I never thought this kid can play. Now, there's a lot of people that like him. I'm not one of them, So I think you got the guy Baggett. Looks like he can run the offense a little bit more effectively than Fields has. Obviously, Fields has the high fantasy upside with the rushing and stuff like that. But no, I think Fields begins his backup journey next year, because I think the Chicago Bears are going to be in position to draft a quarterback. And listen, if you're not getting in playoff position, you're getting into tank position. That's where it looks right now for what we think will be an historic draft class. Listen, and I tell you, as a Giant fan, right? And I know that Giant fans is not going to want to hear this, right? And listen, you get mad at me and say what you want to say, but you Giant fans know the truth. The Giants get the first pick of the draft. They're going to draft Drake May. They're not drafting Caleb Williams. They're going to draft Drake May.
It's funny you say that. Let me ask you this. So I feel bad for Daniel Jones. I've never been the biggest Daniel Jones fan. But seems like a nice kid. He's a tough kid. He's just not available. The inconsistency. We can look at the offensive line. Whatever. $160, $40 million guaranteed. It's unfortunate, man. But they're still on the hook for one more year with him, right? It's an unfortunate injury, dealt with the neck twice now the ACL. With all that being said, I asked my buddy this the other day. I said, what do you think of Williams? He's like, red flags, man. And then we were talking about how he went into the stands, he was sobbing at some of his comments. And then earlier in the week on BYP with my guy, Lloyd Vance, I said to him, look, you've been covering the league for a long time. GMs sit at home and they watch every single reaction, everything that's heard, every mannerism. I'm wondering if GMs around the league, when they interview this kid, they'll probably talk to him about that moment. Now, I got hammered for saying it because I'm not picking on a kid for showing emotion. But with all that being said, there are probably a handful of GMs to them. That is a red flag, thinking, can he deal with adversity? Is he too emotional? Is he not mature enough? Was it just a prisoner of the moment? I think the kid can play, but I'm starting to now lean towards the kid May as well.
So it's funny. I actually did I did a little quick hit on this on the Better Network this morning on the same topic. And for somebody who has been following the young man's career basically since he's been a junior in high school, this kid has been raised to be QB1. You know what I'm saying? He look at his license plate on his car when he was in high school was QB1. Fantastic high school quarterback at Gonzaga Catholic. He has been groomed and trained to be a number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. What happened this past week, right? I think the finality of his USC career is kind of what took over in that moment, because that was their 3rd loss.
Correct.
So they're out of no Heisman, no college football playoff. Now they would have to pull off an upset. They're a 16-point underdog at Oregon this week. If they was to pull off that upset, which he could do, then everything goes away, because they're probably going to be in the Pac-12 championship game. He beat and knocked Oregon out of a potential college football playoff spot, and he did it on the road in a tough environment. Everybody will be right back on his side with 1 win. And I'm going to sprinkle the money line on USC this week, and I've been fading USC all season. Lincoln Riley did a terrible job with this kid. There's no way you have this guy on campus for 2 years and you don't get to the college football playoff. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any. It doesn't. That was terrible. But Rich, from what I've seen, man, when this guy is rolling, he is unbelievable. He's Patrick Mahomes.
So then why do you think? So let me ask you something. Arizona's got 12 picks in the first round. Then you got Chicago 2 and 3. The Giants, from the Carolina pick, the Giants would sit at 4. So, I mean, would Chicago, by what you're saying, what if they believed in Fields? You crossed them off the list. Arizona's stuck with Murray. They don't need a quarterback. So the Giants sitting there, if he somehow, I'm trying to rationalize it in my head where, and that's why I check out Tankathon all the time. I'm trying to play it in my mind, these quarterback teams. If he's there at 4, I mean, you're saying that
he's not going to be there at 4. People will spend the capital to come up and get him, right? So let's just say now, if I'm the Giants, right, and I want to stick to my Tobacco Road roots, you know what I'm saying? And listen, Rich, you know what they say? They say the Mariners don't want a black franchise quarterback. That's what they say about the Mariners, and I'm not going to say that, but the track record doesn't really seem to suggest differently, right? If that is the case, right, and Arizona gets that pick. If I'm Arizona, I immediately get on the phone with the Giants and I say, come up and get him. Come up and get the guy you want. Come up and get May. You know what I'm saying? We'll drop back. And then the team that's number 2 is going to make the decision between Harrison and what if the Bears get Williams and Harrison Jr.?
Here's the elephant in the room. What if Williams turns around and he's like, I'm not coming back?
Oh, what if he says, what if he decides to stay? That would be, well, listen, that's out there now too.
No, and I'm going to tell you why, right? He sits there and let me reword it properly. I'm not coming out. NIL.
Yeah. Right. And he's already made a ton of money. You know what I'm saying? And listen, it's not NFL money, right?
Yeah.
Well, the Bears are a legacy franchise.
Yeah, but
that's the only thing.
But that's all well and good. So are the Giants. But look what's happened over the last 20-something years. They've been a laughing stock. I mean, that's a fact.
If I'm Williams, right, and I want to say, you know what, I'm going to call my shot in this thing, I would try to get to the Rams. Because I don't think he'll be a bridge quarterback. You're not going to use Caleb Williams as a bridge quarterback. The fan base is going to want him on the field. You can get rid of Matthew Stafford, trade him to the Jets, trade him to the Giants, whatever the case may be. You get rid of Matthew Stafford. Now you got Sean McVay. You got Caleb Williams. You got the Rams in a rebuild with Caleb Williams and Sean McVay. And then you don't get a legacy franchise, but you get what Pete Rozelle, Paul Tagliabue, even now Roger Goodell have always wanted. A relevant franchise in Los Angeles. So maybe the Caleb Williams to Los Angeles thing is a way to make football relevant in LA. You know what I'm saying? So that is something that I think could happen because the Rams are going to probably be in that spots. Well,
they right now, they would be 1, 2, they would be 6. Giants 4, New England 5, Rams 6, Green Bay 7, Tampa 8, Denver 9, Tennessee 10. But you're right, they would have to jump over these teams. And by the way, listen, if Chicago wins a couple games here and the Giants go 3-14, 4-13,
the Giants could lose out. Yeah,
because is Arizona right? I mean, it's a quick swap with Arizona. I mean, do you like the kid May?
I think May's a good player too. I just think Williams is I think I wouldn't be able to pass on Williams. I don't think you can. And I think Penix is
$160 million.
But it would really next year is going to be the hit, and then you know what? Then he's got to be on the team because he's injured. You know what I'm saying? You got to rehab him. Yeah,
of course.
So he's going to be there. He's going to be in the building before you can get rid of him. He knows he's a lame duck. It's a bad situation. But if you get a chance, I mean, take the quarterback of your liking. But with me, listen, you can still drop down in this class and get May. You can get Penix. I don't think Shador comes out. I don't know what the deal with the quarterback from Washington State, Cam Ward, is, but you can have the guy from Duke, but he might be a little bit. If I was the Giants, I probably wouldn't do another Duke quarterback. But there's quarterbacks in this draft. You know what I'm saying? So there's going to be Jaden Daniels has been fabulous this year.
What's the point of drafting a quarterback if you still haven't fixed the offensive line? So,
no doubt.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So you got the reports coming out now in New England that a very credible writer came out and said, "Listen, there is a thought if the Pats lose to the Colts that they're going to make a change. That game is in Germany. I cannot see for the life of me Kraft firing Bill Belichick mid-season. I think that would be the worst disservice.
The ultimate sign of disrespect.
Yeah, exactly. Can't do that to the hoodie. You just can't because of what he's meant for that franchise. Now, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, and one of my other insiders and handicappers came on and said, hey, man, if Belichick is so gung-ho on breaking Shula's career win mark, which he is, he's not retiring. So you've got a couple of teams out there. We were throwing out a team like Washington. New ownership, open up the checkbook. Rivera's going to be out, obviously. Del Rio's going to be out. Who knows what's going to happen with the enemy? Belichick only concerns himself with the defense, but then the counter was, well, they just got rid of two of their best defensive players.
All right. So, this is so interesting. I was listening to Michael Lombardi earlier this season, and he was talking about the situation in Denver. And he was like, well, you know what Sean Payton wants to do. He's going to get rid of Russell Wilson, get his own quarterbacks. Another team is going to be in the quarterback market, and he's going to start over from there. He's going to hit reset. And he said the Patriots need to hit reset too, but with Payton, he's going to have the job. Now, the guy who was hosting the show didn't follow up. And I'm like, how could you not follow up on that? He just basically told you that there's a chance that Bill Belichick may not be back.
Exactly.
And it's starting to really look that way now. Now, what I would say is this, right? If you walk away, right, which I think is a good chance is going to happen, if you're Bill Belichick, you can't blame nobody but yourself. Because when you look at, you're the general manager. You're not just the head coach, you're general manager. And when you look at that roster, who's the best player on that team?
I mean, it's you would argue it has to be someone on the defensive side of the ball.
But Matthew Judon is the best player on that team.
I mean, that's saying, but see, 100% agree. And you illustrated it brilliantly. And yeah, I mean, you got to follow up and say, wait a second, what are you hearing? Rumblings that he's going to get fired? But he just signed that lucrative contract extension, probably making about $20 million a year. Put that to the side for a moment. If I'm Kraft and I see that, I don't know, Washington's, whispering, hell, Chicago, maybe, I don't know. I'm not firing him. I'm actually holding on to him.
Trade him.
I want to see what I can get. You want him? Because if you fire him, he's getting paid. He walks and he's signing another contract.
I would be very careful. If I'm the Chicago Bears, I may take that. Who's the team? Well, I've always heard the Giants was the dream job, but I don't think Brian Daboll's going anywhere.
That's not happening. But I'll give you one that right in their backyard, who he spurned many, many, many moons ago, the Jets. Can you imagine think about it. It probably the Jet fan is cringing, but hear me out. You've got a defense. He only concerns himself with the defense. He doesn't give a crap about the offense. Wilson, done. If Rodgers is coming back, now you can squeeze 2 years out of Rodgers, and you have Belichick as head coach with that ready-made defense, with Miami, who's leaking some oil, with Buffalo, that it looks like their window is closing. And then basically you also can turn around and you can shove it back to the franchise who you basically created as a dynasty. Now, I know he has respect for the Patriots and Kraft, but
so does Josh McDaniels, apparently.
But think about that coming, like, you want to talk about really, to some extent, full circle.
That is a full circle moment right there. Definitely is. But so let me just break down a couple of these scenarios.
Yeah.
First of all, Washington, right?
Yeah.
That the fan base doesn't want it. The fan base doesn't want it. The fan base wants their own guy, and the fan base wants those draft picks. The fan base wants the draft picks. They got to build Washington ground up. You can't bring in, it'd be like when the Knicks brought in Phil Jackson. You know what I'm saying?
The allure just for the name.
The allure for the name.
But here's the difference.
You got to stop that in Washington.
But here's the difference. Phil Jackson, it was not the right fit, and everyone knows he was just taking the check. Belichick is a football savant. You ask him a special teams question, he'll break it down for 20 minutes. He wants to surpass Shula. He wants to win. That fire still burns in him. I just think he's in a position, as you alluded to, that he put himself in with bad draft picks, not enough talent. It's pretty evident that quarterback cannot play. So now you bring in your own guy, you draft who you want to draft. That ownership is going to open up their checkbook. They'll probably sit there and say, give you some control, because that's what he's going to be looking at as well. You've got your offensive coordinator probably in place in Bieniemy. Now you bring in your defensive coordinator.
Well, I think both guys go. I think Bieniemy is going too. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh McDaniels comes back in the building, despite how many people really despise Josh McDaniels in the NFL. He's almost at an Adam Gase type level at this point. Yeah, no, I can see it, but I would worry about the fan base getting upset at the uses of draft picks and going this old route. I think the Giants is not, because I don't think they get rid of Dabo. The Bears is very interesting. I don't think he's going to be in New England next year. But then if you're New England, who do you go get? And listen, talk about, I said this. I don't know if I said this to you. I said this about a year and a half ago. If I was a guy, an NFL owner looking for a new head coach, I think now is the perfect time to give Dabo Swinney a call. Now, you may not think that, collegiate to NFL coaches work. You know what I'm saying? But if you wanted to go that route, now is a good time to pick off Dabo, because Dabo does not want to play. He does not want to deal in a transfer portal NIL version of college football.
None of these older school, and he doesn't obviously like to get questioned on how much his salary is.
I'll tell you why. I had 12 10-win seasons.
That was a great, he's burying this
he was killing them.
Probably the student who's a reporter or fan. I'm sorry, was a fan who called up, and he calls him by his first name.
Tyler in Spartanburg. I working for Sirius XM. When I was in the newsroom at Sirius XM, I used to be in charge of collecting and cutting the college coaches shows, right? And these are always the most fabulous shows. It's like in a lizard thicket in Tuscaloosa, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then you'll get like Reggie from Birmingham, a truck driver. And then the truck driver gets on the phone with Nick Saban and tell Nick Saban how to run the program.
Which is
it's
classic,
the best stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and listen, they were barking back and forth, but here, I'll throw you now a curveball. The one name we haven't brought up. What about Harbaugh?
Yeah, he's going to be available. I think this is it. If nobody does scandal like the Big Ten, and the Big Ten, and Michigan leads the Big Ten in scandal. You can sit there and say, well, every team, everybody in college football is doing, sign stealing. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Right. But putting somebody on the opponent's sideline in a coach's uniform, that is unheard of. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think it actually causes them the CFP. And I think Harbaugh may gracefully bow out and head. That's who I think is going to end up in Washington. Harbaugh.
All right. Let's we got a lot of time to talk about that. Let's hit some of these games right now. All right, what's kind of standing out? I mean, we've got some good matchups here and there. You got the 49ers and the Jags, the Browns and the Ravens. Your Ravens, laying 6 in this one.
It's a big number for Baltimore right there. I think Cleveland keeps it close. Put it like this. This is going to be the last team I say I think keep it close with Baltimore. I've been on that. They're going to keep it close. I've lost betting against this point spread. I figured Baltimore would cover the spread and win the game. This game, but you see, this is the problem with this game is Cleveland can do what those teams couldn't. They can stop the run.
Yes.
And that's what Baltimore does. Baltimore runs the football better than anybody with Lamar, Gus, and Justice Hill. Imagine if they had J.K. Dobbins, they would be almost unstoppable. But the Browns can stop the run, and the Browns have generally played Baltimore well. If this becomes a quarterback game, then that's easy Lamar Jackson. And then listen, when the thing with Baltimore is they got the best kick in the NFL. I think Baltimore wins the game, but I think Cleveland plays them tough because Cleveland can play defense better than it's about anybody else.
They got the short week too because they got that Thursday night game against Cincinnati, then the Chargers, a bye week, the Rams in Jacksonville, San Francisco, Miami, and Pittsburgh to close it out. So they've got some winnable games. Baltimore, as you mentioned, always good to get off to those nice starts, right? The 6-2, the 7-1. You want to get off to those starts. The Lions and the Chargers, interesting, right? The Lions are on the road 6-2. We know about the points. We saw what the Chargers did. I mean, the Jets kept them in check. You had bad turnovers by Zach. You had fumbles. You had the punt return early. I told everyone, load up on the Chargers because I'm not a Jet guy. The offense, Zach, that was go to bed at halftime type of game. But the Chargers, Lions are 3-point road favorites in this one. And it's weird. Like, this is a spot where you would say, if the Lions are who we think they are, they should have no problem with this game. And they should easily win this game.
Looking at the game and breaking down how these two teams would match up, I think the Lions are a little bit tougher and got a little bit more grit and a little bit more fight to pull and win the game than the Los Angeles Chargers do. Listen, I think Dan Campbell is a little bit better of a head coach than Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley is god awful. I don't think Campbell is great, but he's better in that regard. I just look at the Chargers as a team that is not going to figure out a way to win this game. I would take the Lions minus on the money line. If I'm planning on the spread, I'm going to take it at -2.5. I think it's like every other Charger game. The Chargers lose the game by 3 points.
Yeah, because that's what they do.
Yep. Except for the Jets. They found a way to blow the Jets out.
I thought it was a weird spot. Like, it was just too much jet, when they really didn't do anything against the Giants. We know their offenses, they've had 8 touchdowns this year, and Zach Wilson stinks. I mean, it's where we're at. Seattle's laying 6.5 against Washington. Now, Washington's played tough. I give them that. Seattle basically got exposed the other day. I mean, they could not stop that Ravens rush. They got their doors blown out. Geno reverts back to Geno. Even though I think this is a tough spot for Washington, I don't think Washington wins the game, but I think this might be somewhat of a game that, up and down, little track meet here and there. I'm leaning towards Washington and the 6.5.
No, be careful, Rich. You don't want to trust the Commanders in back-to-back road spots. Who's your boy? He's great as a road dog. Ron Rivera, I believe, since the beginning of last season, 5-2 ATS as a road underdog. But in back-to-back road spots, that's where they're a little bit tricky. You remember last year? I mean, not last year, last month. They went to Atlanta and won, and then next week they came to the Meadowlands and laid an egg. That's probably how this is going to end up. They're probably going to lay an egg this week.
Yeah, I mean,
they historically have played Seattle very tough in Seattle. Washington has, but I don't think that's the case this week. I think Seattle gets back on track.
Listen, what you're saying, really good point, because again, 425 window on the road, Seattle, tough place to play in. They're looking to rebound. I just look at Seattle, and sometimes I look at their offense and I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say they've had some lucky games and lucky wins. Their defense is opportunistic, no doubt. But I'm not even going to sit there and say it's a wash with the quarterbacks, because Geno Smith is better than Sam Howell. But in watching a little bit of Seattle, I've also seen where he makes that bad mistake. If you shut down that ground game, they're averaging at about 4.3.
And that's what happened. Yep. Yeah. That's what happened at the end of last season.
Yeah.
Kenneth Walker got hurt.
Yep.
And they became pedestrian.
Yeah.
And then this year, Walker's back. They're running the ball effectively, but Geno's turning the football over this year. The completion percentage has dropped from 70 down to about 65, right? Not a big number, but last year it was 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. This year it's 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's not fully regressed back to Geno, but now he's a game manager. Last year he was going out and winning games. Now they're winning in spite of him.
And for all those reasons, that's why.
He also got one of the worst offensive line in the NFL on the road.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's a tough spot right there too. I think this is Seattle. I think I actually would take Seattle to the window this week.
Okay.
Ain't my last time doing that.
How about I mean, I don't know if this might be my look but don't touch, but you got the Jets on the road against the Raiders, and I looked at the game the other week. If Jones doesn't get hurt, okay, interim head coach, who knows what's going to happen? A little juice, a little life. Jones gets hurt, the Giants implode, they get blown out. Not overly impressed with the Raiders, but they've got some nice skill players. They have a good defense. I mean, they came to play the other day. I can't imagine what they'll do with that Jets offense. And then conversely, I don't know how well that Jet defense is going to play on the road, going across country, primetime game, knowing that their offense is so bad. Like, can you imagine being in that locker room? You're given 60 minutes, defensive side of the ball, consistently and constantly going back to last year. And all you need is a quarterback to just be somewhat competent. The shovel pass the other day, he didn't need to make it. The one where he scrambled and he juked the defender, all you have to do is just place the ball. The tight end dropped it late, fine, that's smoke and mirrors, but I can't trust him or the offense. And it's crazy. A competent quarterback with those weapons, and this team is probably 6-2, right? Maybe even 7-1. I don't know, even with Rodgers. for that reason, if I had gun to my head, I would go with the Raiders.
I would take the Raiders in this spot too, Rich. It seems like it almost feels as if they got Josh McDaniels out the room.
Right.
Now that's kind of it's connected. The team is connected now. Yeah. You saw that last week. You know what I'm saying? The team became connected. The energy is better. You know what I'm saying? I actually think they're going to. I think this is one of those interim situations. I think this may stick because I think Davis realizes when Bisaccia was the interim, he should have kept him.
Yeah, because they made the playoffs that year.
They made the playoffs and they had the Bengals on the ropes, and the Bengals should have won the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? So it looks like I think the players are probably going to want Pierce. I think Mark Davis needs to do what the players want to do. The players really did not like Josh McDaniels from what I'm hearing.
Who does?
Nobody. I don't believe. I remember a couple of years ago, I think maybe the Patriots' last championship run, I believe it started with what's your man? Tom Brady mysteriously ending up with a cut on his thumb. To this day, I think he threw a punch at Josh McDaniels.
Not a bad conspiracy theory, or those that
of
think
course
that
not.
Aaron Rodgers I mean,
people will still believe the Knicks were given to Patrick Ewing. You know what I'm saying? So we got to do a sports conspiracy show, Rich.
Hey, man, I'm all for it. We can definitely do that. I got 1,000 of them that you'll be like, where the hell did that come from? I think this is it for the Bills, man. This is their last stand. Like
plus 195 before the season started to not make the playoffs. Everybody told me I was crazy.
There is a I don't want to say brokenness with the team, but I feel as though there's this, and I'm not going to say it's Allen, the wide receivers. I'm not going to say from the head coach down. I don't even think, does it have to do with Brian Daboll not being there anymore? I don't know, but bad loss against New England, couldn't do anything offensively against Cincinnati. And I really think that loss to open up the season with the Jets was a gut punch, right? And they're just kind of like, the ship, it's not capsizing, but it's starting to leak and people are starting to jump and we're going down a little bit. And they've got Denver, the Jets, and Philly, and Kansas City and Dallas. I mean, listen.
Oh boy, which games are on the road?
So they've got Denver and the Jets at home. So let's say we give them the 2 wins at 7-4, okay? And then you watch their odds to win the AFC.
You gave them the Denver win too? If the Denver game is at Denver, don't be surprised if Denver knocks them off.
No, it's home. It's home.
Okay, that one is home.
Yeah, Denver and the Jets are home. So let's just give them
they'll get those two,
right?
They'll get those two.
Then they got to go on the road against the Eagles.
They're going to lose that.
They have a bye. Then they're on the road against Kansas City.
They'll lose that.
So that puts them at 7-6. And I'm going to chuckle when I say this. Then they host the Dallas Cowboys.
They'll lose that. 7-7.
On the road against the Chargers.
They'll probably beat the Chargers.
At home against New England.
They should beat New England.
So they close out the season, and there might be a shitload on the line here on the road.
I was going to say, do they play an AFC North team this year?
They did. They played Cincinnati,
and they lost. Last week. That's going to be. What's that last game that you were talking about? The one
Miami. So you're looking.
Miami might be in control of the division by then.
Who? Miami.
Yeah.
So
I think Buffalo has got to get a wild card spot, and the problem is they don't have they need to have an AFC North team on their schedule.
It's not going to happen.
Yep.
Because Pittsburgh decides to win some games this year.
Out of nowhere.
I had my 3 coming out, Cincinnati, because I have Cincinnati and Detroit in the Super Bowl. That was my preseason Q's picks on BYP. Cincinnati, Baltimore, and I had Pittsburgh as that third team coming out of the AFC North. Yeah. I had the Jets missing a playoff, Miami and Buffalo in, and then I had Kansas City. And I had one more team. Because you have 7.
But did you mention Kansas City, you mentioned Baltimore, Pittsburgh, the Browns.
I
And
didn't.
then you had
So
the
I
you had the
had.
other year, you had the Dolphins the Dolphins and the
So
Bills.
I had Miami. I had Miami, Buffalo. I'm sorry, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati is 3. I had Jacksonville 4,
That's
Kansas
the
City
team.
5, and then I had Buffalo, Miami 6, 7. I had the Jets missing the playoffs even before the whole Rodgers crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't believe in them, and I really didn't believe that the Rodgers thing was.
Well,
I kind of bought into when the season started, and then obviously by the time you got out, I'm about to say they got
how
out the
about
first
this?
quarter.
I got crucified because when I did a quick hit for BYP when they were talking about Rodgers, and I said Zach Wilson will never pick up a football again for the Jets, get rid of him, keep Mike White, and I said you don't want to go down Rodgers, God forbid he gets injured, and I said that in March. This guy's 4 snaps in, I'm coming home, whatever the hell it was, and all of a sudden he tears his friggin' ACL. So that changed the whole complexion too when you think about the AFC.
100%, because right now the Jets could be really in control of the AFC East.
Yeah.
So I think you got to think of Rodgers Jets would probably be a tad bit better than the Dolphins. Obviously, you see what the Buffalo Bills are becoming. I just think the AFC is just going to be. I just think let's just get ready for the Baltimore Kansas City showdown in the AFC, and then the NFC is how can you avoid San Francisco and Philadelphia, and is San Francisco a team you want to avoid right now, or do you just want to avoid Philadelphia? You probably just want to avoid Philadelphia. The thing that happened to Buffalo when they went to London. They lost 2 of their defensive starters. The team hasn't been saying the same
the Jacksonville
since.
Game?
Yeah, the Jacksonville game. The NFL sacrificed Buffalo this year, basically is what they did, because they left Jacksonville over there for 2 weeks to see what it would be like if they moved the team over there,
100%.
had the team staying there, and then flew a team in on Friday.
They flew
a team in on Friday, and that team lost their 2 best players on Sunday.
But yet you had people hammering Buffalo in that game. Go figure. I mean,
yeah, you're right.
Right? What are we doing here? I mean, that's why these London games. I
never bet the international series games.
You can't.
I never know what it's about. Yeah.
You don't know if, God forbid, a meal doesn't sit right with a player.
Yep.
Their sleep's off. They're jet lagged. They're going to be sluggish. I mean, at least Thursday Night Football, we know it's a crap product.
Yeah, but you get to go back to Cleveland afterwards. You're going from Carolina to Chicago. Yeah, I can do that tonight. You know what I'm saying? And I'm getting up there in age, Rich, and I'll be all right to get up in the morning. I probably couldn't play a game, but I'd be able to walk to the bathroom without saying,
Yeah, it does take a couple more minutes, man, especially when you look outside and it gets darker early.
Oh, man, you can forget about that temperature. That thermostat's on 65. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. Not in these parts. It's, just grab another blanket.
Yeah, for real.
Or open up the windows. All right, before I let you get out of here, you got anything on the NBA before I let you get out of here?
I think I don't know if I didn't give it to you. I don't know what it's at now. In-season tournament. Indiana Pacers to make it out of Group A. Last week that was plus 550. The Pacers went into Cleveland on group play. Not went into Cleveland. The Cleveland came to the Pacers for game 1 in group play, and the Pacers knocked them off. Group play will resume on Friday. I don't know what the schedule is, to be honest with you, but they already have a win over Cleveland. And I think they're good enough to beat Philadelphia, too. I think they can win Group A. They were plus 550. That probably has moved since, but I think Cleveland comes out of Group A. Indiana comes out of Group A.
Interesting. They won 35 games last year. I think they were finished overall like 11th in the conference, 35-47. They got some players, no doubt.
Miles Turner, obviously great coach, and I can't think of the man's name right now. He used to coach the Mavericks. Rick Carlisle, his second stint with the Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton's one of the best young players in the league. Miles Turner. They got a lot of pieces that fit together, and they've drafted well. The guys on the bench contribute.
I wait till about Christmas before I start.
I feel you.
Just the way the NBA is, and
money line the Trojans this weekend against Oregon.
Well, it's funny because who'd you have? South Carolina early on in the season, and
against Georgia, right? We almost did that too. We almost pulled that one off. And then look at the Gamecocks; they fell apart. Bad offensive line play. Yeah, I don't think Shane's in trouble though. I think they like Shane here.
Don't forget, give Corey a follow on social media at the Fantasy Exec. What do you got going on with the YouTube channel? Promote
got stuff, got content coming up. You know what I'm saying? Doing betting shows over there. So you come over there, get a couple winners. Please like, please subscribe, because you understand how them you think pushing that subscribe button doesn't mean nothing. It means the world to some of us.
He's in there, Jay. You
it's
know
the
what?
difference between community college and, you know what I'm saying?
I was about to say 1,000 subs maybe keeps the lights on a little bit.
There you go. You know what I'm saying?
We put a little food in the stomach.
There you go. You know what I'm saying? We might be able to avoid community college for the girl. So there you go right there.
All right, brother. Always appreciate you jumping on BYP. We'll do it again next week.
My man.